Hi, everyone, and a very warm welcome to CENTAlks for Parents. If you can hear me, drop a thumbs up in the chat. For those joining us for the first time, CENTAlks for Parents is our dedicated free webinar series. In every session, we bring together expert educators and specialists to have the kind of honest, practical conversation that actually make a difference at home. We believe that when parents are empowered with the right tools, children don't just learn, they thrive. And as many of you are already aware, CENTA has recently launched parents.centa.org, our dedicated online portal exclusively created for parents. This portal is a space where parents can access expert led resources and, more importantly, connect to share experiences and insights. This webinar series is an extension of that portal, part of our commitment to walk alongside you and to ensure you have a supportive community at every step of your child's learning journey. On behalf of CENTA, I once again invite all of you to another insightful session in our ongoing CENTA webinar series for parents. Before we begin today's session, a few quick notes. To keep this session truly interactive, we would love for you to keep the live chat active. Drop your questions, reactions, and comments there anytime. We will also have poll questions throughout the session. Please do engage with them as diligently as possible. Your inputs helps us tailor the conversation to your specific needs. Now, coming to today's session. Does the daily homework battle feel like a never ending tug of war in your home? Do you ever feel more like a supervisor or a policeman than a parent? We have all been there, but here is the reality: the world is changing. Schools are shifting from rote memorization to focusing on critical thinking and self regulation. As the classroom evolves, our parenting must evolve too. Success in the 21st century isn't just about grades on a report card, it's about the habits that get them there. Today, we are moving beyond rule based discipline. We're exploring from homework to habits, the discipline shift. We are going to learn how to stop fixing the immediate conflict and start building a blueprint for character, focus, and most importantly, intrinsic motivation. And to lead us through this shift, I'm thrilled to introduce a true veteran in the field of education, Dr. Pooja Jain. Dr. Pooja is a senior English teacher and a housemistress and coordinator of pastoral care at the prestigious Delhi College, Indore. With a doctorate in English literature and currently pursuing a professional doctorate in education, she brings a wealth of academic depth to this conversation. But beyond the degree, Dr. Pooja is a specialist in the human side of education. She has conducted master classes for CENTA and STAR on everything from conflict management to active learning. She understands the 21st century classroom inside and out, and she knows exactly where the friction happens between school expectations and home life. Whether it's de escalating tech battles or fostering independence, she is here to help us move from being supervisors to becoming true learning partners. Dr. Pooja, we are so lucky to have your expertise with us. The stage is yours.
Good evening, everybody, parents, teachers, educators, and thank you, Center, for the opportunity. So, yes, the topic today is a dicey topic. It's a topic with immense conflict. It's a topic that brings in about a lot of stress and strain on the teenagers and the parents, especially. It's a topic, it's a conversation, it's a dialogue that requires a lot of partnering and collaboration and effort, because I have learned and I have experienced as a teacher, as a house mistress, and as a parent of a teenager that it requires a village to raise a child. It requires everybody's blessings, wishes, effort, and energy to raise a child. Here we are talking about children, teenagers who are going to turn out into youths of tomorrow, future generations of tomorrow, torch bearers of tomorrow, and the baton has to be passed on. So, what we are going to talk about, homework to habits. Homework over here, we've taken it as a symbolical, metaphorical concept, but it means a struggle that happens between parents and children, especially teenagers and adolescents, at every step of the way. The struggle, the conflict, the clash, the rift, the mistrust, the miscommunication, the misunderstanding. All of this is nothing new to our generation of parents and your generation of children and teenagers. This is something that we have experienced when we were children. Our parents had experienced when we were teenagers and adolescents. And this has been happening for decades, for ages, for always. And this, I think, will keep on happening because to me, I have learned this is a human process. Because there are some things that never change. Discipline never goes out of fashion, not for parents, not for teachers, and surely should not for teenagers and adolescents as well. So I have put in a lot of thought, a lot of research, and my own personal experience as a parent of a teenager boy who has just finished writing his class 12 board exams. So I know what it must have taken for me, for his teachers, for our entire family to get that one child and my nephew who is his age. So to get these both children on track, to be focused, to be attentive, not to be distracted, not to be carried away by friends, peer pressure, and devices. I know it takes a lot of effort, and especially if parents are working parents, the struggle doubles up. And so does the energy and effort double up. So, my endeavor of putting this entire webinar together today is that after this webinar, or probably during the course, I learn a lot from you, from your experiences, and I can share my plight, my trials and tribulations, and my experiences with you. Let's together try and understand the shift in education from just marks and grades to skills and competencies. Let us recognize the gap between practices that are applied at home and the experience and expectations at school. Let us understand teen behavior and adolescent behavior through neuroscience and psychology also. Let us understand the shift from rule-based discipline to habit and character building. Let us understand some practical, doable strategies to support learning at home. Let us reflect on our own parenting style and parenting habit, trying to move towards raising independent learners. Because if we keep on teaching children of today the way we were taught yesterday, we will rob them of their tomorrow, is what I have learned. So there are some poll questions that I would like you all to reflect on and answer, and we will wait for you to respond and reply in the chat box. My first poll question to you is, what is the daily routine that follows at your place? So how often do we remind our children to study, to complete their work, to complete their tasks or chores? My second poll question will be, what is the ownership of learning? Who usually plans the child's day and study schedule at home? My third poll question is, what is your biggest area of conflict? What causes the most conflict at home? Homework, screen, peer pressure, lack of motivation, discipline, procrastination, all of that, or none of that? My next poll question is, what is the approach? So when a child says, I don't understand, so what do you really do? Do you immediately explain something? Do you sit and solve it together? Do you ask them to try first? Do you give them some guidelines and guiding questions? My next poll question is, what is the definition of success for each one of you? What matters most to you for your child right now? Is it marks? Is it grades? Is it discipline? Is it habits, values, confidence, independence, or nothing at all? Just the child's safety, security, and happiness. So I will wait for about, say, 30, 40 seconds for you to reflect on these questions, to probably write down what is it that is bothering each one of you the most right now. Because believe me, I've been there, done that. Like I said, raising a teenager, raising an adolescent is just not an easy task. It's a huge task. It comes with its own challenges. It comes with its own curiosity. It comes with its own struggles and hassles. And it has solutions. It has partnered solutions. It has collaborative solutions. So if you tell us what is it that bothers you the most at home, I think it will give me a little perspective to move in and to move ahead and to dive into a little more deeply. So some of you say that yes, multiple times a day that you have to remind your child. Absolutely, we've all been there. We've all been through that actually. Somebody says, "Oh God, how many times do I need to remind my child for anything that he or she does or does not?" I totally understand that, right? So let's move ahead and let's understand what all of this means for us as parents. So I think homework is just not the problem. It's a habit. It's a structured habit, it's discipline, it's values, and it's the problem of independence, self dependence, and ownership. So, what we are trying to manage is outcomes. We want results, but are we building behaviors, patterns, value system, an atmosphere and ambience and an environment at home that will lead to these results and these outcomes? So, for example, if I want my child to be a 90 percenter in school, what is it that I am facilitating my child with? What is it that I'm giving my child so that he can be a 90 percenter? Is there a party atmosphere at home? Is there a screen atmosphere at home? Are there too many people bogging him down? Is there too much of work pressure at home? Are we not able to give the child enough resources and facilities? Are we not able to create a happy, healthy, emotionally safe environment for the child? Is the screen time too much for the child? Yes, I can see a lot of parents writing screen time is such a huge struggle and challenge. I will come to that because a lot of it comes from home also. A lot of it comes from us as adults and parents also. We mirror the children's habits actually. The children learn from us. What we say is not what they will do. What we do is what largely they will do. So, screen technology definitely, yes, has been a huge struggle, has been a huge challenge, has been a turbulent point, a turmoil for everybody at home. There is no doubt about it. But the insight that I want to share with each one of you is we cannot expect children to behave differently if we keep on parenting the same way. Like I said, how I was taught 25 years ago, if I teach my generations today, in today's time and age, in today's technology and age, I am going to rob them of their tomorrow. So we need to adapt, we need to reflect, we need to adopt strategies and solutions and means and ways that are going to help the teenagers and adolescents and children of today to become more aware, more informed, and better citizens of tomorrow. We're talking about being a global citizen, a more informed, a more aware citizen. Another point that we would like to raise is the changing nature of education. So I've been reiterating it, and I've been saying it, that how we were taught. And let's talk about screen, since everybody is talking about screen, that this is the biggest conflicting point and clash point at home, the screen time. And we all know that there is absolutely no doubt. Undoubtedly, screens have taken over a lot, and children, I would say, if I may use the word, addicted, intoxicated, engrossed, oblivious to the world around them, that they use screen and when they use screen. But tell me one thing, my son and some of my children told me that ma'am, if there was screen in your time when you were our age, wouldn't you go through the same thing? Wouldn't the same thing happen with you? Would the same conflict not happen between your adults and you at our age that is happening with us? Is it our fault that there was no technology at your time and at your age? And that you grew up in a childhood or at a time that was devoid of technology, that had joint family systems where teachers and school education landscape was very different, and the huge paradigm shift has taken place. So, with the changing times and with the paradigm shift that has taken place, it becomes our responsibility and it becomes imperative for us as adults and parents to understand children and their world, to be able to dive into it and to be able to resolve the conflicts. There has to be a routine. Absolutely. Somebody says that lack of home routine or failure to stick to daily routine, I'm going to come to that. It is a very important thing. Discipline does not happen overnight. Discipline is a huge routine process. Discipline and motivation requires consistent and persistent effort. They cannot happen in the flash of a second or in a blink of an eye. Some habits have to be developed. Behavioral habits, character development traits and habits, they have to be developed over a period of time, and they have to be modeled. We cannot live in a world of dilemmas and hypocrisies where we say something but do something else, where we teach something and preach something but practice something else. There are some things, if we want our children to abide by it, if we want our children to model it, if we want our children to live it, the value system, especially the routine system, especially, we cannot expect them to do everything that we lecture them to do or preach them to do without modeling it in behavior and without practicing it ourselves. So when we talk about the changing landscape of education, the paradigm shift that we talk about, we need to understand that when we were raised and we were in school about 30 years ago and 25 years ago, educational landscape was very different, vastly, immensely different. Right? So from there, we have shifted to here. We did not have screens at that time. We did not have teachment and all these AI tools that we are using it right now. We didn't have webinars like this 20 years ago. I do not remember my parents having attended any webinar like this on parenting, on teenage behavior. They did whatever they did. They brought us up and they nurtured us how they were nurtured. There was hardly any difference. And then there was a joint family system, basis which we all were brought up. Values were taught at home, they were modeled at home, right? So this is what we have to implement and take forward. So from rote memorization, we have moved to 21st century skills. From sticking to chalk and chalkboard, we have moved to Padlet and Kahoot and quizzes and Edpuzzle and Canva. So from there, that when we move here, we need to evolve. As the classroom evolves, our parenting teaching styles also need to evolve. Success in 21st century is just not about the right marks and right grades. It's about behavior, it's about habit, it's about independence, it's about sharing and collaboration, and it's about quality time rather than quantity time. So what happens is that schools are preparing children to be global citizens of 21st century and of tomorrow. So, but we at home, we focus on certain other things. So earlier success depended on memorization, obedience, compliance, because I said so. Following instructions without questioning, without asking, without arguing, without even thinking. But today, success requires critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, flexibility, adaptability, self direction, motivation, reflection. So the shift is from an adult directed learning to a student centric learning. No child left behind, because the learner or the student is the center of all attraction. So, which means that students must develop independence, ownership, and students must develop learning autonomy. So, what I have learned over the past 10 years almost as a teacher, as a parent, I was also a very young parent and a young teacher. It took me a lot of time to evolve and to understand a few things and experience and life's challenges and day-to-day routine and things explained to me that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So we are talking about adaptability, we are talking about ownership, we're talking about collaboration, we're talking about critical thinking, we're talking about curiosity, we're talking about inquiry based learning, we're talking about experiential learning, we're talking about a generation that is seeped into AI and technology and devices, yet needs love, care, affection, still needs guidance, still needs sometimes hand holding, will make mistakes, but does not want to be judged, does not want to be punished, does not want to be criticized all the time, does not want to be shamed and defamed. Everybody makes mistakes. Let's reflect on our childhood, on our teenage. Haven't we trodden the same path? Haven't we made the same mistakes or different kind of mistakes? So they will also make the same kind of mistakes or different kind of mistakes. So our job is not to critique them all the time, to lecture them, but to hold their hand, to show them the path, to guide them. And then the future is for them to decide on. My next point would be the hidden gap. So instead of collaborating and coming together, the school and the home is in a conflict and the child is confused. Different instructions coming into the child, different sets of styles of learning and teaching coming in for the child. For example, unintentionally, we adults create tension between expectations and reality, and between school expectations and home expectations. So, for example, school expects or teachers encourage students to explore, to ask, to manage on their own, to take responsibility and ownership for their own learning, for their own habits, for their own behavior. But what do parents do? We have helpers at home, we have cooks at home, we have maids at home. We focus only on marks. We want work to be complete and done so that our headache is over. And we only focus on performance rather than the effort. The journey also has to be taken into consideration. This creates confusion in children when we pass comments and remarks in front of the children about school behavior, about school patterns, about school style, about learning and teaching at school, when we are in conflict within our own thought system, when we are in conflict with the school, the children tends to get confused. So, for example, at school, the teacher says, explain, justify, elaborate. But the parent says, just write the correct answer. That's all. Get some marks. When the teacher says, try solving it on your own, give it a shot. You can do it. The parent asks, why hasn't the teacher taught you? Why are you carrying it to school? What were you doing in school? What was the teacher doing in school? So this weakens the process of independent learning style. So school and home, parents and teachers are partners, team members, collaborators, because who are we doing it for eventually? It is for the child. It is not for us. It is not for you. It is for the child in the center. So when this gap and rift and tension between the parent and the school is resolved, the child is more clear in the head and the child has similar kind of instructions to follow without any confusion. So when at school there is independence, but at home there is dependence, this creates confusion in the child's learning system. So children cannot become independent learners in school if they remain dependent learners at home. Absolutely clear and absolutely true in that. Let us now, for a moment, understand teenage behavior. So, this has come from a lot of research. This has come from neuroscience. This has come from psychology. So, we interpret teenage behavior as laziness, procrastination, defiance, disobedience, irresponsibility, distraction, peer pressure. But developmental psychology and neuroscience tell us something different, totally different. So they tell us that teenage behavior and teenage brain experiences emotional sensitivity, low impulse control. Teenagers and adolescents are impulsive in nature. And why teenagers and adolescents? Even we as adults, sometimes we become very impulsive in nature. We become irrational. We become aggressive. Teenagers, they have a strong need for autonomy. Anything that we say or tell them, it becomes a bondage for them. It becomes a shackle for them. They want to break free from that shackle. They want independence, they want freedom, they want liberty, but they don't know how and what to do with that liberty. You give them independence right now, you give them freedom and liberty right now, you give them any amount of money that they want right now, you allow them to go out into the roads and the streets and do whatever they want to do with their friends right now. I know as parents, our worry and concern and main question will be, how will they do it? What will they do with that kind of autonomy? We haven't guided them enough. So that is where our job lies. Primarily, a role lies to guide them, to mentor them, to discipline them, to tell them the consequences for every action that they will take, every mistake that they will make. So, what leads to these behaviors is procrastination, resistance, and rebellion, and distraction, which can also come from a lot of peer pressure and screen time, of course. So they reject control without explanation. Teenagers today have become so curious and inquisitive. For everything, they need a reason. For everything, they need a why, an answer to be given. So, what we have understood is teenage behavior is not defiance, it is development plus lack of skill. So, control creates compliance, but understanding and conversation creates responsibility. So, if children are not fully ready for self regulation, our role is not to control them, but to coach them. So it is discipline, like I said, is not an overnight behavior. It's not an overnight trait. Discipline is something that is built over years, over decades, over a period of time. Discipline is something that comes from within and it cannot come on its own. It has to be taught, it has to be guided, it has to be mentored, and it has to be largely modeled. We cannot expect our children to do something that we are not modeling it in front of them. Somebody rightly wrote also that we have to model the behavior we want in our children to abide by and follow. So, neuroscience says that the adolescent brain is still developing and it develops at least till the age of 25. So, the emotional brain, which is also called the limbic system, which is responsible for emotions and rewards and risks, this becomes highly active during adolescence. Adolescents and teenagers, adolescents and teenagers, they look for appreciation, they look for rewards, they look for positive sanctions. They are they're very curious, they're irrational, they're impulsive, so they're ready to take any amount of risk that they can take. And their emotions, their emotional regulation is very low. Then we talk about the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational brain. So, this rational brain is responsible for planning, for decision making, for impulse control, for long term thinking, for thinking, far sighted thinking. So, this matures slowly, and this matures till the age of 25. So, which means teenagers may procrastinate, they may struggle with planning, they will need our help at every step of the way. They react emotionally and impulsively, and they take impulsive decisions without realizing the consequences. And I'm sure, please correct me if I'm wrong, and please write in your chat if you think your teenager is not impulsive. I mean, exceptions are always there to the rule, definitely. But largely, per the psychology and per neuroscience, teenagers and adolescents are impulsive by nature. They do take impulsive decisions, and it takes a lot of time, effort, and energy to be able to make them understand, to calm them down, to pacify them, and to make them realize something or everything for that matter. Then, why external control does not build discipline amongst teenagers? Because there is another theory to it which says that children, they develop through three psychological needs. One is autonomy, one is competence, and one is relatedness. So when we are talking about today's time and age, and when we're talking about teenagers of today's time and age, like I already said, they want to feel in control of their choices, they want to take their own decisions, but they also want guidance. Then they want to feel capable, they want to feel that they are enough. They also want to feel supported, mentored, sometimes handheld. So, to be able to develop their intrinsic motivation, they do not need control, they need sometimes pressure, conviction, communication. So, for example, if we constantly keep on saying, study, 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 finish your homework, or clean your room, or make your bed, the child will do it to avoid a consequence or punishment, but not to learn. So, what we need to build is trust. What we need to build is confidence. What we need to build is support. So, for example, say it once, say it twice, and then instead of a punishment, lay down a consequence. Give a timeline, give a deadline. So, the timeline or a deadline, and I have experienced it myself with my teenager. If I am after him, he refuses to do it. But if I give him a timeline or a deadline, or if I lay down a consequence to him, I have seen tremendous change. If I take away one of his pleasures or privileges, I sometimes do see a change in him. If I do not let him do what he wants to do once in a while, till the time he has done what I want him to do, I do see a change. So it is difficult to handle impulsive behavior, impulsive decisions, but that is how we have learned, and that is how they will learn, and that is how every teenager will learn. So, why constant monitoring can reduce responsibility? Because they feel they're not trusted. So, there has been research by Harvard University and Stanford University on parenting styles that says that over controlling, over coaching leads to mistrust, misunderstanding, and miscommunication, and it weakens independent learning habits in children. So when parents constantly remind, they constantly check, they constantly supervise, children stop taking initiatives, they become dependent, they stop planning, they stop management, they procrastinate all the more, they become defiant and non-compliant at times. So this is learned dependence. Children need to feel supported, they need to feel confident, they need to feel experienced, they need to feel responsible for their own learning. So when there is trust, when there are timelines, when there are checks, intermittent checks, and when there is a lot of communication, there is confidence, and then there comes in self-dependence and a sense of responsibility. So what is productive struggle in learning? So when we talk about a growth mindset, when we talk about productive struggle, children learn their best when they see ability as something they can develop through effort. When they see that competence and skill and ability can be developed, it is not imposed. They believe that intelligence can grow, skills can grow, competence can grow. When they know that they can face challenges and they can overcome challenges, they are ready to take academic risks and they should learn from their mistakes. When their mistakes are not shot down, when they are not judged for their mistakes, when they're guided for their mistakes, when this, I will not say supported for their mistakes, but when they know that mistakes is a part of life, it's an experience that happens. In this case, what mistakes do parents make? A lot of us in trying to support our children, in trying to protect our children, we make our children fragile. We want to give the best to our children. We want to shield them. We want to protect them, shade them from every struggle in life. We want to be at their beck and call because we want to avoid our struggle also, our mental stress also, our turmoil also. So we feel if I'm going to help my child, it is going to happen quicker. If we feel that if I'm going to help and do it for my child, it's going to happen quickly and it's going to reduce my stress. In trying to reduce our stress, what are we actually doing? We are making our child dependent on us, totally and completely. Let the child stumble, let the child fall, let the child rise back again. The child should know that no matter what, how many times ever I may stumble and fall down, my parent is there to hold me up. My parent is there to wipe my tears and shield my wound. My parent is there to help me move forward. My parent is not there to shield me and protect me from every struggle in life because today we are there and tomorrow when we are not there. Who's going to shield our children from the struggles in life? They're going to then become mentally, emotionally fragile and weak adults. And then they're going to carry forward this streak in them, trying to do the same for their children. So, as much as we love our children, we care for our children, we want to protect our children from every struggle in life, we still cannot do that. They have to still make their own mistakes. They have to still learn from their own mistakes. We can just be by their side and we can guide them, mentor them, help them, teach them. Moving on to the neuroscience of habits, we have understood from our own childhood, from our own parents, and as parents and adults, that habit formation is a routine work. It is a matter of consistent, persistent routine. And consistent and persistent routines, they help the brain format and automate behavior. So, for example, sleeping at night and waking up in the morning. It is very easy to let the child be on screen and sleep off and then think, let it be. Who cares? Who will put our heads into it? I have to get up for work. I have so much of work to do. And then the child slips into that behavior. Believe me, this is a huge task. It's such a huge struggle. A lot of parents are helpless. A lot of parents, they give up, they let the child just be. And but a lot of parents also take up this challenge and this struggle. They spend sleepless nights trying to monitor their children, trying to supervise their children, trying to speak to their children, trying to communicate to their children. And children will remember. They will remember. We don't want to be rigid. We don't have to be stubborn. There could be occasions and there could be times when we can let it be. But all the time letting it be and not taking charge and not being in control will then let the child be forever. And that child will someday grow into an adult, grow into a parent. And what kind of a parent will that child turn into? So the neuroscience of habit says that 3 steps generally formulate habits. One is cue, that is a trigger. One is a routine that formulates behavior. And one is reward for good work, that is satisfaction. So routine means focused work when there is a set pattern. Exceptions are there, for example, Sundays. So I know that I have to sleep by 11:30 because I have to wake up at 6 in the morning and I need at least about 6 to 7 hours of sleep in the night. So I cannot let my child slip into screen or slip into screen or let him be whatever he wants to be or let him do whatever he wants to do. I know that I have to model that behavior. I have to set that routine at home. When that routine becomes focused work, I know that these are certain habits that need to be built. Dinner at what time, waking up at what time, how much of screen time. And then there is reward. That is a sense of accomplishment, sense of satisfaction, and sense of completion. So over a period of time, when these cues are built, these behaviors are built, then it requires lesser effort. Then it does not remain a challenge, hassle, or struggle quite often, except for occasions. Then everything seeps into routine and seeps into time. So a daily routine is more powerful than occasional discipline. So routine is very, very important. And to have that routine, we have to model that routine. When we talk about power of conversation, communication, psychology says that adolescents develop self-regulation and discipline when there are open conversations, when there is reasoning, when there is dialogue, when there is collaboration and problem solving. Rather than control, do as I say, punishment, criticism, and a lecture method. All the time lecturing, all the time preaching, and no practicing, and just shutting up the child and teenager or adolescent and just saying, do as I say, because I'm your parent, because I'm the adult, because I'm the head of the family, because I'm the boss. Teenagers will not take it. Of course, yes, teachers play a major role. That is why we are calling it a partnership. That is why we are calling it a collaboration. But home is the first school. Parents are the first teachers. A child, when is born, does not start going to school immediately. A lot of it in the first 4 years, formative years, is developed from the parents at home only, is learned, is instilled, is abided. And I have learned from my own teaching and parenting style that a lot of values can be inculcated and instilled at home. And teachers and peers, and again, a lot of research has also proven that every phase of life requires a different person in life. So, for example, formative years, children are fascinated by parents and teachers. Teenage and adolescents, children are fascinated by peers and influencers and the outside world. Then comes a time when they are in their adulthood, 20s and 30s, again, their career choices, they love life. And I have learned from my personal experience, and correct me again if I'm wrong, that after 30 or especially after 35, when we're in the midlife crisis, we go back to our parents and families. in 40s and 30s, when we are married and when we have our own children, then we realize the importance of our own parents in our lives. And then we look to our parents to help us, to guide us. So it is a collaborative effort. And that is why I said right in the beginning, it takes a village to raise a child. To listen to the child, to listen to the child and not to negate the child's emotions. Because at that age, at that time, at that moment, the child wants to say something. The child wants to communicate something. The child wants to express something, and we don't have time to listen to the child. So that power of conversation is lost. That power of communication, that trust that could have been built is lost. Even if their question is silly, even if their question is irrelevant, even if their question is not important to you, with just a patient here, just a patient listening, just a moment of pause can do wonders. Just listen to them. I was reading an article, and then I was reading a little bit of doing a little bit of research, and there was somebody who said that if we recall in childhood, when children are small, they come running to us. You know what happened, that friend, what happened in school. They want to share everything with us in joy, in excitement. But as and when they grow, why does that stop? Why is there a barrier? Why is there a big why is there is a gap, or why is there a bridge? Because when they start growing up, we feel they are grown up enough to handle their problems. We stop listening to them. It becomes irrelevant to us. It becomes unnecessary to us. We hardly pay attention to them because they have grown up. They're big children, yet they are children. So we need to listen to them to avoid that gap. The power of communication, instead of criticizing them and lecturing them, appreciation, listening, talking, dialogue, communication, putting our own screen aside, holding and halting for a moment, giving them all the importance in the world, and that will make a lot of difference. Then the parent influence remains powerful. If we are not the role model, if we do not set the right example, we fall flat on the face. It is the most important and the longest association that we have with our children. A warm relationship, a strong communication, love, care, love, care, and affection, expectations, but realistic expectations, aligned to the child's aligned to the child's potential and competence and opportunities. When we facilitate opportunities, we are able to guide the child. We're able to help the child. Patience, of course, yes. Let's look at a case study. The case study says, it talks about a child, right? The case study says that parents constantly remind the child to complete their work, to complete their homework, to stop using the phone, to stop using screens. So there are arguments constantly. Last minute study, low motivation. What is the intervention? We can practice schedules. We can practice reflective questions. We can practice daily review conversations. What is the priority? How much of time? What needs more importance and more attention right now? This probably over a period of time would lead to lesser conflict and improved habits and improved responsibility. The question is, how can parents support the curriculum? This is a very important question. The question is, how can parents support curriculum? So what can parents do is, parents cannot teach the subjects, obviously. Parents can't teach the syllabus, the curriculum that is being taught in the school. But we can definitely role model behaviors. We can support learning behaviors. We can create an environment at home. We can support the child through their questions, through their inquiries. We can help the children, facilitate them, give them those opportunities. That is very important. So what we can do is, we can create a learning culture at home. We can ask reflective questions to the children. It should not appear as if we're just instructing them. We are just ordering them, we are just lecturing them. We are creating a time, a family time together. We're discussing ideas. We're creating a learning environment at home. By asking reflective questions, just not that what marks did we get, but what was the favorite moment at school today? What was the most challenging moment today? How did we overcome it? Who helped you? Who did you help? What was the most striking moment of the day? Any such thing that could bring the child closer to you, that could create in the child, or that could instill in the child that yes, my adults, my parents, my teachers are interested in me. So, for example, just today in one of my classrooms, I was teaching travel writing to my children, grade 8 students. And we grade 8 students, we know how they transition and how distracted they are and how mischievous they are and how they're just fidgeting around. So, to be able to introduce the travel writing, I went down to them, and for 10-15 minutes, we just talked about travel experiences. I kept on asking them who has traveled where, and what was the most fascinating, most interesting, most exciting, or most boring moment of their travel experience. And then they asked me, ma'am, where all have you traveled to? And when I told them my travel list, they were so fascinated. And then I asked them for recommendations. I said, would you recommend me a few places to travel to? And we had such a lovely, such a lively, energetic conversation. I cannot even tell you. And then teaching them travel writing became so easy. And then they wrote a piece of travel writing on their own, and it turned out to be a heart to heart writing. It just did not require any effort. It came out so naturally, and it came out so reflectively for the children. Then, when we connect school learning to real life learning, when we connect school learning to real life learning, learning becomes interesting, learning becomes easy, learning becomes relatable, and learning becomes connected. So, whatever is taught in school, if it is negated at home, it becomes difficult for children to understand and relate to. When we encourage problem solving, so when a child says, I don't understand this, the child definitely needs independent thinking, but let us also understand, where is the child stuck? Why is the child taking so long? Where has the child come? How far has the child come? So instead of either solving the problem immediately or negating the problem outrightly or saying something that could demotivate or discourage the child, let us understand what is pinching the child. Goal setting, SWOT analysis. I'm sure we all have learned, we all have must have read about or heard about SWOT: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. I do SWOT analysis and reflection and goal setting a lot with my children. And believe me, it has shown a lot of improvement. I have done it with my own teenager. SWOT analysis, goal setting, target setting. For every exam, he has to set a target. Even for his board exam, per subject, a timeline, a deadline, a schedule, a strategy, and a target. And then we reviewed that target constantly. We're waiting for the board results for sure, but at least he had a target in head. He had a target in mind. So even at the beginning of every week or the beginning of every month, we set goals. What are the three important learning goals? Not just academic. Goal setting can be character based, value based, discipline based. It could be anything. So, what I do is, in terms of SWOT analysis and goal setting, I make a mixed combination of academics and learning style and behavior and value system. So, that helps them not just focus on marks and grades and projects and assignments or subjects or curriculum. It also helps the children reflect into their own personality, reflect into their own lifestyle, learning style, and into their own traits and discipline and value system. Conflict, a very stressful situation. The clash, the conflict. So there is conflict and resistance everywhere. Lack of ownership. Conflict in screen time. when there is an imbalance between responsibility and relaxation, when there are no set rules at home, and when there is not a set routine at home. Lack of motivation. So, when there is no clear set purpose, when there is no clear goal, when there is no SWOT analysis, there are no interests and there is no motivation. There are no aspirations. The child has no purpose in life. The teenager is so lost, so confused. The teenager has no direction. It is so important to talk about interests and aspirations and career choices and subjects and goals and pursuits and activities and sports to be able to keep the teenager interested, encouraged, and motivated. What are some of the strategies that we can employ or adopt in trying to motivate the teenager? Moving from control to coach, replacing lectures with conversations, appreciation instead of criticism, natural consequences, because mistakes are the most powerful learning experiences and teachers. Being a role model, like I already said, that children observe a lot. They observe our routine, they observe our emotional responses, they observe our value system, they observe our discipline, they adopt and they adapt to our tone and tenor. So, how do we adults talk and conduct and carry ourselves is how it is reflected in our behavior. And teenagers, they copy and model us. Yes, they cannot compare with us all the time, of course not. We are adults, we've been there, done that. Yet, there are some places, there are some times, and there are some value systems that cannot be compromised with. At least for the sake of our child, for the sake of our teenager, we need to be role models. Some reflection insights for parents. Do I want my child to depend on my instructions all the time, or should they develop the ability to guide themselves? So, children must be taught how to think instead of what to think. What does this mean? If we want to develop academic resilience and success in the child, we need to instill in them a sense of responsibility, a sense of curiosity. They should be curious and inquisitive, a sense of value system and resilience. Very, very important. So, there was a case study. So, suppose there is a bright but an unmotivated child, intelligent, a quick learner. But every point of time, we feel we've been through that. Children become unmotivated, unnerved, and discouraged very soon and too quick. So, what is it that we have observed? Procrastination, distraction, incompletion of work, and last minute stress. So what have we as parents tried? Strict rules, punishment, lectures, comparisons, increased supervision. What did that do? Temporary improvement, resistance, rebellion, distance, and not a long-term habit change. So, what was actually happening? It was a lack of planning skills, lack of time management, lack of motivation, lack of purpose, lack of interests, and lack of structured routine and habits. It was a self regulation gap and not an intelligence gap. So, if we looked at the strategy a little more differently, what would it mean? Improved consistency, better time management, reduced stress, increased ownership of learning, and improved academic performance. More importantly, lesser conflict, lesser stress, and more sense of responsibility. So, what I mean to say is motivation is not created by pressure. It is created by dialogue. It is created by a sense of purpose, a sense of aspiration, a sense of appreciation. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about structure, routine, and habits. Children don't lack potential, they lack a structured system, they lack role models, they lack facilitation, they lack opportunities to be able to live up to their potential. If we make a shift in approach from control to coach, conversation and dialogue, planning system, daily reflection, controlled independence, but yes, guided and controlled independence, there will be a huge shift and paradigm shift in discipline, character, and values. So let's look at some questions for parents. How often do you say sit and study? How many times do you end up reminding your teenage child? How often does your child wait for you to tell them what to study and how much to study? Do you sometimes feel, if I don't push, nothing will happen? Who plans your child's study time? You or them? If you stop reminding your child today, will your child still complete their work? How often does your child ask, what should I do now? What next? What am I to do? Are we raising children to take responsibility or wait for instructions? What is our first question to the child after the exam? What did you learn, or how many marks? What was your mistake and how will you improve? Or what will your grades and scores be? How often do we have conversations at home that revolve only around marks and not around the journey, not around the effort? How many times do you say you could have done better? Or do you ever say, make more effort, child? Is it about improvement or is it about high scores? When your child says, I do not understand, do you explain immediately? Do you scold them? Do you lecture them? Do you leave them? Or do you let them try? How comfortable are we seeing a child struggle, cry, fall, make mistakes? Do we step in too quickly to fix things, or do we wait for them to fix it on their own, then come for help? How often do we say, because I said so? So, control. Do rules at home come with an explanation, or they are just lectures and instructions with punishment and consequences? Do our children follow rules only when we are around and we are watching? Or do rules and regulations and discipline come from within? How many daily arguments do we encounter around phones and screens and devices and gadgets? Do we only set limits, or do we co-create limits and boundaries? Are screens the only problem, or is it a lack of structure? Do we model the same discipline as we expect our children to? Do our conversations feel like lectures or discussions? How often do we truly listen to the children without interruption, without lecturing? Does your child share openly or only when asked? When was the last time your child spoke without the fear of being judged? Do we demonstrate discipline that we expect? How often do children see us focused, see us off the screen, see us following a daily routine, see us reading or learning or curious or inquisitive? Do we manage our own time well? Do we procrastinate? Are we calm, emotionally regulated while modeling the behavior in front of the teenager? These are some of the questions for us as parents to reflect. High set of reflective questions. Why teenage behavior? What is the positive result of teenage discipline and behavior? So, self discipline and inner motivation, the desire to take care of their own health, safety, and security, better decision making skills in them, ability to control their own emotions and impulse, they will learn ways to stay calm and regulate their own emotions. They will develop confidence and self esteem. They will be open to learning from their mistakes, and they will be lifelong learners, and there will be more trust, more authenticity, and more connection. The final key takeaways from today's session would be that teenage discipline is most effective when parents respect teens' opinions and thoughts. Parents and teens can agree on house rules and a routine, and that reflect shared values and shared communication as a family. There are three types of consequences: natural consequences that the children learn on their own. However, having said that, we can't leave the child to their own devices, loss of privileges and pleasures, and reparations and restitution methods. And positive teen discipline strategies result in better self discipline, emotional strength, resilience, and self esteem. Finally, we often expect children to be organized, focused, and disciplined without ever teaching them how to be. So let us make a concerted effort, a more informed effort of disciplining our teenagers or adolescents. Let us understand the psychology behind teenage and adolescent behavior. Let us be more kind, compassionate, and sensitive towards our teenagers. Let us understand we've been there, we've done that. We were also teenagers and adolescents at a point of time. Let us not impose everything on them. Let us step into their world to be able to understand their psychology. Then only will we be able to raise regulated, disciplined, value based, character based teenagers who will grow up to be more mature, more sensible, more kind, more compassionate, courageous, confident, inquisitive, appreciative adults of tomorrow. That's all from my side today.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And I could notice in the chat box that a lot of people were found the sessions very informative and they have a lot of key takeaways. Um, Dr. Chain, thank you again. You have
My
given us a
pleasure.
practical roadmap to move from because I said so to
It
fostering
all
real
came from it all
responsibility.
came from heart as a mother of a teenager son growing into adulthood. So it so much was from personal experience and heart.
Yeah, we could find see that. And
Yeah.
people in the chat, please do share your appreciation. She has given us so much to think about and take home tonight. A few things to share before we close. If you haven't already, explore parents.center.org. This is your home base for all our resources, but it's also where our parent community lives. It's a warm, inclusive space where we invite you to share what you're feeling, ask for advice, and connect with other parents who are on the exact same journey. We would love to see you active there. Follow Center on our social channels and stay tuned for more sessions, resources, and conversations designed for you. To every parent here tonight, thank you for showing up, for asking questions, and for caring this deeply about your child's learning. That in itself make all the differences. Once again, thank you from Center.